Shabbat Shalom, friends. One of the most beautiful love stories featured the late magnificent actor and activist, Christopher Reeve. But I'm not thinking about what many consider to be one of the sweetest, if not the most sentimental, love stories portrayed in film of all time, which was the 1980 movie Somewhere in Time. If you're in the mood to look at two of the most physically beautiful people that have ever walked the planet, take a look at Somewhere in Time. Gosh, 1980. Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour in a time travel love story that was a hanky movie for the teenagers and young adults of my era. I was a little young for it and saw it later. It's gorgeous, and it'll definitely bring a few tears to your eyes. But the love story I'm thinking of that starred Christopher Reeve was the love story of his life. Most of you in our circle know me pretty well and know that despite the wonderful tech teaching I've received from Cantor Andy, I don't turn on TVs very easily. And it seems that the screen I work best with for watching anything of a TV or movie sort is the one on an airplane. That I can deal with. And with my heart utterly shattered on Thursday, learning of the unspeakable murders of Sarah Milgram and Yaron Lashinsky, I felt I needed to watch something, anything, but something that was meaningful and that would address and be a container maybe for some of the pain that I was feeling and am feeling on the gunning down of these beautiful people coming from an event where interfaith dialogue and humanitarian aid were the topics. So I needed to just rest a little bit and maybe watch something meaningful if there was something to find. And sure enough, there was. The life and the love story of Christopher and Dana Reeve. It came out as a documentary a few months ago. And as we approach in just a few days the 30th anniversary of that Superman's devastating accident, which left him paralyzed from the neck down for almost the remainder of his life. He gained some movement extraordinarily toward the very end. I was crying openly on the plane, which nobody seemed to mind. He was our Superman from the late 70s, an unknown actor who roomed with Robin Williams at Juilliard. I had not known what close friends they were. What a combination. And they were lifelong friends. Both of them gone much too young. Christopher Reeve was the embodiment of physical perfection. No other way to describe him. He was a sailor, a pilot, and after the filming of Anna Karenina, he became an avid horseman. He could skate, he could play tennis. He was a god, really. And while he was participating in a steeplechase competition in Virginia on March 27th, 1995, he suffered that accident that we can all still feel. He had been married 3 years at that point to Dana Reeve, a beautiful actress, somewhat his junior, and they had created a beautiful life together. Dana became Chris's primary caregiver, raising their young son, participating in the raising of her stepchildren, son and a daughter. And the love of those two people is so moving and so powerful and so enduring. For the 9 years that Chris lived after the accident, he lived off of the first thing that Dana said to him after that hideous accident. She said, "You are still you, and I love you." His courage, his ability to find the strength to become a spokesperson for the millions of people who live in anonymous disabilities, confined to wheelchairs, unable to move. When he appeared at the 1996 Oscars, the ovation was thunderous. You want to look at what Hollywood looked like 30 years ago, be amazed. So many people still in their prime. I'm not even there yet. But when he appeared on stage in that wheelchair, this once unbelievably physically active man, so full of life and movement, but his light was not dimmed. It could have so easily gone out. After that appearance at the Oscars and the love of the Hollywood community and millions of people worldwide, he put on a different kind of hero's cape and became such a strong advocate for disability awareness and rights and for stem cell research. He appeared at the Democratic National Convention in, I think, the year 2000, asserting the values of caring for one another and not letting the most vulnerable people in our society suffer unnecessarily. Talk about tears in the audience. He said 25 years ago, in America, we don't let our least be left behind. We need to treat them like they are the most, because we all become better that way. Chris died in 2004 from either heart failure or sepsis, or just his system finally broke. He had directed again. He had acted again. That kind of superhuman strength is the sort of heroism we need. And I'm so sorry that he had to endure that, and that his beautiful wife, Dana, at the age of 44, succumbed to sudden and out of nowhere cancer just 18 months after he died. There are great love stories in our world. Yaron and Sarah were just starting their great love story. But I pray that their days and their time together was full of joy and hope and expectation and optimism and the sense that they were trying to do the right thing. Their short lives had such purpose, and their love was so radiant. I didn't know until Thursday evening that Sarah Lynn Milgram was a schoolmate of my daughter's at the University of Kansas. Adina knew her. They were a year apart and knew each other from Hillel. And Adina and Sarah were on the same Birthright Israel trip. And a lot of tears the last few days. But Yaron and Sarah lived a love story. And my friends, what we can do to honor them is to continue to live the love stories of our lives. With friends, with family, with partners, with furry friends, with the plants and nature and Hashem. The Jewish people have been living a love story with God for thousands of years. Sometimes it's rocky. We have been estranged and even felt separated. But despite the pain and the exile and the terror that we have felt often as Jews, and some of that is enumerated in this week's Parsha. Before the reading began today, I mentioned this litany of terrible curses. It's called the Tochecha, this harrowing list of consequences that could befall the Jewish people if we forsake the covenant. We have lines in it such as Leviticus 26:17. Those who abhor you will rule over you, and you will flee, though no one pursues. The passage is long and devastating. It's often read in an undertone. It outlines famine, starvation, defeat, humiliation, exile, and fear. A world turned upside down where Jew-hating enemies roam freely. Jewish life is cheap and our dignity is trampled underfoot. We'll be described as being like a driven leaf, tossed from one place to the next with no respite. It's felt like that for a while. But the passage ends with hope, as does the Haftarah, as mentioned before. It began with blessing. If we can walk in an upright way, we will have blessings. And the chapter ends, Leviticus 26:45, that despite everything, the Jewish people have always maintained that God remembers God's covenant with us. We've been here before, but the love that has existed between the Jewish people and God, we say, is everlasting. Ahavat olam, a love that is everlasting, has sustained and propelled our Jewish people, no matter what calamity after catastrophe has occurred. We still live this love story, and it is worth living. To hear the stories of people who lived great loves and yet never allowed their light to dim. To weep that Yaron and Sarah's love story is cut off at its shoots. Has to make us attentive to the rabbinic and Hasidic and Musardic and Jewish teaching that to despair is to sin. And when it feels like despair is the only proper response, the only honorable response, we still double down on love. Fine rabbinic colleague shared that a young woman who is rediscovering her Judaism, when faced with someone shouting slurs and threatening statements just recently in our beloved city. She came to her rabbi and she said, "Rabbi, I'm okay, because despite what anyone says, our love is stronger than our fear." I thank Rabbi Cheva for sharing that, one of the brave members of Am Tikva, who put that so beautifully into words. Our love is stronger than our fear. And while we live, we have the power to make that true. For all the love stories, they don't all live happily ever after, and we know that. But let us honor the great love that was shared and live in the beauty and the blessing of the love that is ours. Shabbat Shalom.